Hello, chat roomers. It's so good to see you guys. Thank you for joining me today. And if you feel drawn to, please subscribe to this channel. In this channel, we talk about everything and anything life. And I would love to talk with you and stay with you on this journey of my discovery to myself. And YouTube is a way that I share parts of me that I don't get to share outside in the real world in my day job. And I would love for you to stay with me on this path. So today I would like to talk about self-awareness, and I want to talk about self-awareness from a part of self-awareness that's called internal self-awareness. There's two parts to self-awareness. Internal talks about, how you see yourself, your values, aspirations, ideas, passions, patterns, and a high sense of internal awareness helps you to make choices with who you really are and to know what you really want. And the reason I'm talking about this today is because I just got this book that an author named Tasha Eurich wrote. She's a psychologist. The book is called Insight, and it's such a great book, and it really has some great insights. And it talks a lot about self-awareness and a lot of research, a lot of scientific data, surveys that she's done, and she's done a ton of studies. So I really highly recommend it. In this book, she really talks about a new way to look at self-awareness, and when we think about self-awareness, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Why should we take time out of our busy life to sit down and ask ourselves who we are, to be aware of who we are, what we want? Usually we don't ask these things until like a major crazy something happens to us, like we lose our jobs and we're like, well, what do we really want? What just happened? Why did it happen? And then we look internally to see what happened. What did we do wrong, and how could it happen? Or like a breakup happens, and then you become a lot more self-aware because you start to go into the spiral of the sadness and the after effects of a breakup, and you ask yourself why, what could I have done better, and how things unfolded, and things like that really force us to look inward and force us to look at ourselves. But we can proactively hold a mirror up against ourselves and really ask these questions to ourselves without those big life-changing moments happening, right? And the reason why you really want to do this on a regular basis, it doesn't have to be daily, it can be weekly, it could be monthly, it can be a journal entry here and there whenever you feel drawn to. The reasons why we want to ask ourselves questions about our values, or what we like, what we don't like, is because if we ask ourselves those questions, we can then proactively make choices towards what we want. So becoming self-aware is actually really benefit to leaders in society. If your day job is a manager in some way, or if you're a team leader in some way, being self-aware can actually really help you understand, how you come about to other people, how other people see you. And that part of self-awareness is called external self-awareness, according to Tasha Eurich. And I don't want to dig too much into that, but I do want to say that taking the time to look internally is actually very beneficial, because then you can focus on choices that you want to make that go more towards your wants, and you can be very mindful in who you are and what you really like. So one of the really interesting things that this book talks about is how when we look at ourselves at, let's say if you went to an interview and you didn't get the job, we tend to ask ourselves, like, why did I not get the job? Why was I not selected? And in this book, she really says, like, instead of asking why, we need to be asking what can I do in the next interview that I go to be better prepared for the job. And the way that she introduces this concept, she gives a research that was done by psychologists Timothy Wilson and Richard Nisbeth. What they did was they set up a card table outside their local thrift store. And on this card table, there was a sign that said Consumer Evaluation Survey, which is the best quality. On the table sat 4 identical pairs of pantyhose, and passerbys were asked to select their favorite pantyhose. What the research found was that most of the consumers, 4-1, chose the pantyhose that was on the right side of the sign. And that actually confirmed another study that was done, that consumers are more likely to choose items on the right side of the product display sign. And so when these consumers were actually asked why they had chose the pantyhose on the right side, they came up with reasons as to why they chose it. Some said, the quality was better, that the color looked better, that it overall was just a better pantyhose, and that's why I selected it. And when these consumers were told that the reason that they chose the product on the right side of the display line is because of this research that was done, and they were told that they were all similar, the consumers did not believe it. They didn't want to believe it. And so the reason why this book introduces this research is because we tend to believe in our own story of why we do what we do, even if it's not true. So when I ask myself, for example, why didn't I get that job in that interview, I may say a story like, the interviewers were really rude, they weren't very clear with their questions, and that's the reason why I didn't get the job. And because of of me not knowing that if that reason is true or not, because there's no way that I can actually prove that reason to be true, right? And then there's also a thing called confirmation bias that leads us to invent reasons that confirm our existing beliefs. So if I already believe that interviewers are not well prepared for an interview, and that it depends on the interviewers being a good interviewer for the interviewee to get a good chance of getting the job, then I will actually try to match my beliefs to the whys of why I didn't get the job. So you can see why asking why is actually not a very accurate way of looking internally into things that happened, things that we experienced, and to really get a sense of self-awareness, because we invent stories all day, every day, not only about the whys of why we do what we do, but also with other people, right? We create stories in our mind how other people are, and that's how we do with ourselves. We create stories in our minds of why we do what we do, even if it's not true. So what Tasha Eurich suggests is the idea of asking what instead of why, because why examines the causes of our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and when we are asking why, we're searching for the easiest and plausible answer, even if it's not true. Asking what leads us to a path forward, what can I do better in my next interview? why kind of questions us in the past. We keep asking why we didn't get the job. Why did this happen? Why did the interviewers blah, 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 blah. We spiral into a victim zone. So asking why in a situation can lead us to going into a negative evaluation of the situation, and we tend to be more rationing, justifying, and explaining, why whatever happened. We go into a victim zone, and it really doesn't help us to move forward in that process of evaluating ourselves in the circumstances. So asking what helps us to understand our choices. It helps us to feel empowered, and it actually motivates us. And there's a lot of research that's done by Tasha Eurich. It's in this book called Insight that talks about how when we're asking what, we're actually also at the same time motivating ourselves to move forward. And so instead of asking why I didn't get the job, I will be asking myself, well, what can I do next time to be a better interviewee? What do I have power over? I'm not a victim, it's not like I don't have any control, that the interviewers, can just do whatever they can to me, right? I have choices. I have the power. I can do anything that I want to do. And how can I make an influence on my decisions? So asking what can I do is better than asking why, in terms of being self-aware. Asking what leads us to a more open and receptivity to self-awareness, if that's a word, receptivity. And it helps us to be more open to the new information, and it gives us hope and a self-influence, and leads us to growth. So one of the things that happens when we ask why, why did let's say if we really ask why from an optimistic point of why this interview didn't go right? One of the answers, a realistic answer may be that I wasn't as prepared for the interview, that I goofed around, I didn't, didn't dress appropriately, I looked like I was half tired, half asleep, I didn't review my resume. And what does that do? It leads us to a negative evaluation of that very accurate feedback, right? We tend to justify why we did what we did. So like if one of the feedbacks was, well, you look really tired, I can justify that by saying, well, I had a really late night, I worked yesterday, I got to the interview from my day job, and I had a lot of meetings, whatever. We tend to go in a spiral of creating reasons to the actual very real feedback of why whatever happened, and that doesn't really help us when we're not looking at the reality and accepting it. So asking what really helps us focus on the future, on what we have control over, and that keeps us more open, because we don't feel like oh shit, like we went really, really wrong in what we did. It helps us feel that power, feel that empowerment of what we have control over. So the reason I really wanted to share this with you is because I think that it was like a remarkable thing that Tasha wrote in this book, because I think it's just freaking brilliant. I tend to ask myself why all the time. I mean, I just had a circumstance happen to me last week where I, accidentally missed something, and it cost me an opportunity. and I was asking myself, why did this happen? Why could this happen to me? And I went into a victim mentality, and I had to almost be conscious of that. And then I changed that to, what can I do going forward that can prevent this from happening again, where I'm more mindful of my choices, to where I won't miss this again. So I hope that this helps you guys, and if you're interested in this book, it's called Insight by Tasha Eurich. I plan to finish the book. I haven't finished it. This is just one chapter of the book, and not even the whole chapter. I mean, it's a remarkable book. She's a remarkable person, and it's a lot of amazing things in this book. So really, take the time to buy it on Audible. It's $10 on Amazon if you want to get the hard copy. And I really look forward to hearing your feedback on the book. And also, if you have any other books that you'd like to recommend, write them in the comments below. And if you have any other comments about this talk about self-awareness, this is a little bit of a different perspective on self-awareness, because a lot of the videos on YouTube tend to focus on like tips on how to become more self-aware and all that stuff. But this little tip from this book really helped me see like the method of self-awareness, instead of asking why, ask what, and how that connects to having a sense of power, a sense of choice, and how that helps people focus on the future instead of the past, staying in the victim zone, and instead of focusing on growth. So there's so much, this very small, simple trick that I think was worth sharing with you guys. Okay, so I'm so happy you guys joined me. I am literally so blessed to have the number of subscribers I have already. And if this is your first time with me in this channel, I hope that you will subscribe to me. If you like this message, please like this video, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, bye.